Well, thank you very much for staying with us. Now, no one will be charged for the deaths of 144 mentally ill Life Esidimeni victims, at least for now. Well, Gauteng's Director of Public Prosecutions has declined to prosecute for the tragedy at care facilities. It cited insufficient evidence and has referred the cases for a formal inquest. Now, an inquiry led by retired Deputy Chief Justice Nxumalo concluded last year it found that officials broke the law when 1,700 patients were moved to substandard facilities in 2016. Now, government was also ordered to compensate the affected families. Let's chat now to two family members who were affected by the Life Esidimeni tragedy. Christine Nxumalo lost her sister, and Andrew Peterson had a relative who survived the tragedy. Thank you very much to you both for joining us this evening. Christine, when I spoke to you a bit earlier on this afternoon, you had said that you had long called as families for an inquest into this matter, but it didn't happen.
Yes, in fact, it was just after my sister had passed, in the process of trying to get a body and stuff. And ourselves in Section 27 actually wrote and requested that they do an inquest, but nothing was done, I don't think.
So, what is your response now to the Director of Public Prosecutions saying there isn't sufficient evidence, this must go now for an inquest? I mean, you've been waiting for a long time for justice in this matter.
Look, after the arbitration, we had been pushing the NPA to give us answers, to give us a decision as to what they were going to do. And just recently, I think 2 weeks ago, they called us in saying they have made a decision. And they basically said that they cannot prosecute at this stage. And when we asked why, they basically told us that the evidence that they have does not say who should be charged. And for that reason, they actually need an inquest in order to be able to charge someone. So to go to court and not know who they're charging, but they have the evidence, would not actually suffice.
Mr. Peterson, you were also part of the Families Committee trying to get justice in this matter. Your relative survived, but obviously you've seen the pain of all these families. You've sat through it. Do you welcome an inquest being held into the cause of deaths of the loved ones?
Yes, Griselda. It's a very welcome development. It's one that, even as Christine pointed out, that we have been calling for a long time to come. You know, so we actually look forward to this inquest, and we're actually quite impressed with the dedication we've seen from on the side of the prosecutors to actually come up with a solid case, a winnable case. You know, we don't want a case where we go to court, but then the court throws it out and then the case is over. So we welcome this development, however late that it is. You know, as I say, justice delayed is justice denied. But at the end of the day, we believe that with an inquest like this, we'll consolidate the facts so that we can have really bring people to book and see people eventually behind bars.
There were quite a number of individuals, Mr. Peterson, who were fingered in the inquiry that sat. And to date, of course, nobody has been charged. This inquest first has to take place. But what would you like to see happen here at the end of the day?
Well, I mean, it obviously is going to be a long and drawn-out process. We just have to be patient, you know. As I say, we have been vindicated already by the outcome of the... but until these people are criminally and professionally charged, you know, we won't be totally vindicated. And we will feel justice has been denied to us as a family. So what we'd like to see is these people criminally charged, convicted, and sentenced, and for some of them to be professionally, obviously, charged as well.
Christine, I mean, it has been difficult for you and other families as well since the passing of your sister. This is bound to open up wounds that hadn't closed to begin with. What has it been like for you?
Well, the whole journey has been very traumatic, you know, and this process is really just going to take us right to the beginning of where we were in 2016 when all this happened. And I think a lot of families feel the same way. And like Andrew was saying, that we've been waiting for a long time. You know, the NPA could have decided, because of the evidence, but not being able to link to charge someone, they could have thrown it out. But the fact that they're actually going to do the inquest, for me, actually, I'm kind of hoping this process will even show everyone else and not just the 3 officials or senior officials, because I think the process had a lot more people taking part in this process. So I'm hoping that will come out of this process as well.
By that you mean that it shouldn't just be the former Gauteng Health MEC, the HOD and the head of mental health who are charged in this matter, but a string of other people.
The officials, for example, that were aware of what was going on and did not speak up, the NGO directors, and everyone else, the police. There's a lot of police, because when we were opening cases, a lot of them turned people away. Some of them were actually involved in these processes as well. So we're hoping that it doesn't just, you know, focus on the top 3. Everyone else who had a hand in this should feel the might of the law.
Mr. Peterson, your relative survived.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. I mean, what has it been like since all of that to pick up the pieces?
It's been hard, yes. You know, as I pointed out, I suppose in another interview, you know, when we found him, he was totally dehydrated. He had temporal dehydration, in fact, which I was told by a doctor that is the most dangerous and critical stage. You know, the next stage would have been for him to die. When I saw him, he was literally a skeleton. Fast forward to today, you know, he's doing well, he's settled now, and I interact not just obviously with him, you know, we also look at other patients and other family members and their loved ones, you know, and there's been a lot of progress, but a lot still has to happen to improve the system, and what we'd like to see is the full package of the arbitration outcome delivered, you know, that for us will be something that we will be truly proud of. Look, we're very confident in the justice system. It does have its cracks and problematic issues, but basically Chief Justice Moseneke, you know, made it quite clear, you know, that these people are loved ones. We love them dearly, and we want to see only the best for them. And hopefully, as a result of people being held responsible by this process, you know, caregivers and everyone in the system will pay more and better attention to people with mental illnesses.
Is that happening, though, currently? Do you think, Christine, any lessons were taken from what I described in the earlier package as, you know, one of the worst human rights atrocities since the dawn of democracy in this country?
To be honest with you, when this story broke out, we thought that people in the health sector, especially in the mental section, would actually be shaken up. But to our surprise, this was just business as usual to them. So no, nothing much has changed. There's a lot. I mean, you've seen a couple of stories breaking out of how patients, mental health care users are actually treated. So we still have a very long way to go. The stigma that's attached to mental health users is still very crippling, basically.
It's also scheduled to be quite a long process, Mr. Peterson, in that a judge still needs to be found who would be able to preside over this inquest. So it's bound probably to happen sometime next year. I mean, what would you say in terms of, you already alluded to justice delayed is justice denied. So the sooner you're able to find the necessary closure and someone is held to account, would you only be satisfied with that?
Yes, I think that's not just me, but the rest of the families. You know, we all hope and pray and would like to fight to see this process expedited, you know. It's been there for far, far too long. And as Christine has pointed out, you know, the fact that we will be going through this right from the beginning again, will be opening old wounds and so on. And the fact that the process will further be, you know, prolonged, that too means that these wounds will fester, you know, and take time to heal. And so, really, honestly, the sooner we can expedite this, the better we can come to a final conclusion about this matter, the better for all of us, and for better for us as a family and as a country as a whole. Because I think it's about time that our society as a whole is challenged about the stigma and the condescending attitude that we sometimes have towards people with mental illnesses.
I want to thank you both for joining us this evening. Thank you very much, Mr. Andrew Peterson, of course, whose family member survived the Life Esidimeni tragedy, and Christine Nxumalo, whose sister passed away in that tragedy. Thank you to you both. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.